Howdy guys, it's Luke at Luke's Affordable Paint Service. This is a new series that I'm doing. It's called Going the Extra Mile. Now, in going the extra mile, it's not a cheap of the cheap, how can I make something really cheap and effective. What this is, it's showing you how can I spend a couple of extra quid and make something out of this world, alright? So, you don't have to be a pro, you don't have to be professional to get a really nice finish. I'm going to show you how easy it is to get a very nice looking hill and outcrops, and I'm going to take you through all the terrain that I'm building for the Beers of War event, alright? So you'll get to see how to make stupidly good terrain, and you don't have to be especially good to do it. Alright guys, I am going to be using a few tools in this video, like foam cutters and stuff like that. You don't have to use them if you don't want, okay? You can use the method of a Stanley knife and sandpaper, but I tell you about that when I get to that part anyway, guys. So get something down so you don't make a mess, and we'll crack on with building some awesome terrain. I'll catch you all in a second, guys. Right guys, so this is the cheap polystyrene that I'm going to be using. It is literally just sheets of polystyrene. It's proper cheap, okay? I'll put links below if I can find the seller. But what I've done is I've got this piece of cork that I'm using for this hill, and what I did is I measured to see how high it was. Okay, so it's just over 2 is this one, so it's going to be, so I've used 3 and I'll show you how I'll shape it later. But literally guys, do that like that, okay? So then all you got to do is I've marked out the base shape, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use the foam cutter. I'm just going to cut out the base shape, alright? Doesn't have to be exact, guys, at this point, because obviously, like I said, we are going to be going a lot smaller than this. I'm just cutting it this size, so so I know, so when it's on the base, I can fit it on the base and I can start shaping it better off the base, you see, okay? But what I'll do, guys, is I'll get all this cut round like this using this foam cutter, okay? Because you see how easy it is using it as a bench rather than just a handheld one, okay? So I'll get this done, and then I'll show you what I'll do next. Catch you in a sec, guys. Alright guys, so now once I've cut that to the size of the base, I don't stick it or anything yet. It's because I'm still working out what I'm going to be doing, okay? Now, with this base, as you can see, with the shape, look, I like how this goes like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount that like about there, okay? So what I'll do is I'll mount this like that, look, okay? And find a nice place to put it. So, because it's the size of the base, I mean, you do waste a bit of doing where you're placing it, but what I like about this is I can actually find where I want it on the base roughly, okay? And then what you do is you trace the back, so you scribe the back of the wood, okay, like this, okay? So you scribe out where you want it, okay, where you're going to cut it. Now, like that, okay? And then what I'll do is it's not going to be a very deep hill as such. It's going to hold a hard tray roughly, and then I'll literally sketch roughly where I'm going to start, beveling it off at the back, okay? So I know you didn't see that, guys, but what I've done is I've scribed. That's what the back of the wood looks like, okay? But I'm going to cut up there, so you've got this piece that'll be as high as that bit of wood there, you see, so I can put some grass on it or whatever. And same with this bit, I'll cut up there and I'll cut it off there, and you'll see why in a second, okay? So I'm going to cut all this out on the cutter, okay? And then what I'll do then is I'm going to have to take it off the cutter. I'm going to start sticking and everything. So I'll get that shape cut out, and I'll take you through how we're going to get it all stuck and together and everything else. All right, see you in a sec. Now guys, when that's cut to shape, you'll see that it follows the base and everything else. Okay, I've pushed it to where I want it, like that. Now just mark roughly where you want this, okay? Now with the front of the hill not being very playable, I'd advise marking it quite far forward. Okay, but just put a couple of dots, you don't have to go mental. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue this and this together. I'm going to be using cork. Okay, so what I'll do, guys, is I'll get this cork sorted out and then I'll show you how I'm going to stick it all together. So I'll catch you in a second. Right, guys, now what you need to do, you need to separate this from this. Okay, now first off, what we're going to do is we're just going to put a few blobs of cork on here like this. Okay, don't put it too thick, as it does dry quite quickly when it's nice and thin. Okay, now as reference, just push that back into place roughly where you want it. Okay, like that. And then what you do now, guys, is get some cocktail sticks. Now, cocktail sticks are a cheap foam pin. I don't understand why anybody buys foam pins. I just don't get it. As in, let's just put a few in the middle, which is going to add strength. Now, this hill, it is mainly only 2, okay, 2 high. But the reason I've got 3 on is because of the because there's a little point of the wood that sticks up a bit. Okay. Now, be careful when you're pushing this down, guys, because it really hurts when you get a cocktail stick in your hand. Okay, like that. The only thing you've got to be careful is, guys, once you've done this, you've got to be careful when you're pulling the foam cutter through it, because you don't want to, because them sticks will catch on your coffee stirrer, on your hot cutter, sorry. So just be careful when you're doing that. They don't have to be bang on where there was originally, but what you do then is, once you've got that on, guys, find the position that you want that in, and what we're going to do, we're going to put plenty of cork on here like this. Okay, and then obviously around the bottom of this where it's going, and plenty of this, guys. Cork's a strong adhesive as well, so it'll hold in place like that. Okay, any excess, just wipe it off, and you can even fill gaps with it while it's like this as well, if there's any gaps that are really obvious. And because you did the tracing out and everything, it should be near as damn it. Alright, but any other things we'll get with filler later. Okay, so now you've done that and you've got this in place, what we need to do is we need to take the foam cutter off its bench, and what we're going to do is we're going to drag this across that and around here like this, and we're going to make it so it all becomes level. Alright, so what I'll do is I'll get that dismounted and I'll show you me scribing, it's called. I'll show you me scribing the top of this. Okay, so I'll get it all sorted and we'll be back in a second. Right, so what I'm doing here is I knocked the top off, so I stopped recording. But literally what I'm doing here, guys, is I'm just following with the foam cutter along the top of the wood to get the shape of the hill, or outcrop, whatever you want to call it. Realistically, it would have been a hell of a lot easier if I hadn't put the cocktail sticks in and glued it together. I should have done this prior to doing that. So when you do this yourself, guys, just don't pin it together. Cut it to shape. Just put your hand on it for a bit of pressure, and then just cut it. I mean, the styrofoam seems to stick to itself. You know, it's got some grip, so it is quite simple to do. But you know, it's an effective way. If you do it this way, it still works. It's just a bit more faffing, that's all. You've got to miss out the cocktail sticks and come back to them, but it works. You saw that really quickly, me scribing it. You know, that all I'll do, literally I've just followed that, and then I've just tried to be a bit creative around the back. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some bits of back and just put them in a few places. Okay, I might even, I'm going to leave it as it is, because I might use this as a piece of blocking terrain actually. But what I'll do is I'll get the little pieces of bark, and then I'll show you how I'm going to put the little pieces of bark on. Alright, so I'll show you. Right, guys, so what I'm going to do now I'm going to show you how to put some little pieces in. Now this is just a piece I've broke off, just a random small piece that came with all that. I mean, I've got loads of the stuff here, look. Now, I want something like that there, probably put it that way, okay? Now, the best way to do this is if you've got like a wire cutting wand. Now, I don't actually have one of them, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to crudely do it with a Stanley knife, all right? But literally, guys, I'm just going to literally mark where I want it, and then just dig out that sort of size with the Stanley. It's a bit messy, this bit, guys, because we are using cheap foam, but once you've done that, look, that'll fit in there quite nicely. Now, if there's any bits that you don't want sticking out, you can just push it into the foam if you want. But at this point, what I'll do is, there's some little bits as well that have broke off like that. So what I'm going to do, oh, I'm getting a bit messy, just put some cork on it, like that, and just push that to where I want it. Okay, and underneath I'll just run some cork as well, because that'll harden and hold it in place, and it also acts as a really good filler. Okay, like that. Then what I'll do is I'll get like the really small pieces that I like the look of. I'll just do, if I haven't got one small enough, I'll just try and break a piece off somewhere like that and get me some small pieces. So always save your small pieces when you start working with it, like that, look. And then just stick some in for little details and stuff. There's also the clump flock and everything else when we come to painting this, but there you go, guys, and that's how you get extra little details on there. Now this here, obviously it looks a bit too smooth, but what I like to do, guys, is I just like to rough it up with a cocktail stick. Alright, I mean, I will put some flock and all sorts around that anyway, but it's just so once it gets to the point that it's dry, if any of that is actually showing, at least it's got some texture on it. Okay, like that, look. Okay, but that'll all hold that in place. Okay, so I'm just going to put another couple of these in willy-nilly on here, and then we'll get to just putting the filler on, and then it's finished. So we'll speak to you in a bit. So I've now added all the extra parts to it. I've not added any sort of like rubble or anything else like that yet. We'll do that near the end. Alright, now what I've got in here is just some normal filler, which is watered down with some PVA glue and some water. Okay, now I've got this a little bit thinner than I usually would have it, and I'm literally just going to start pasting this all over. Guys, all I'm doing here is putting filler all over it. One, it's just to get rid of all the marks with the foam cutter and everything. It'll smooth it out. It blends all the wood into the top of the foam to make it join up and everything else. And the third reason is just to add a bit of strength, because like I said, we are only using polystyrene. Well, I am in this anyway, so it adds a bit of strength, and it, you know, makes it a lot harder wearing. I am also going to put filler paint over that as well. Yeah, sorry, my texture paint over the top of that as well, which is the filler brown paint and sand, as you know. So that's why I did that. Okay. So guys, literally as I said, I'm just putting my texture paint on it now just to add some earth. The main reason I am going to do it is a patchy grass, I think. So that's why. Okay. So when this is done all over, I'll show you it again. So what I'm going to do now, guys, I'm going to show you how to add. Literally, it's just bits of slate. Now, the reason I've gone for fine slate rather than bits of rocks and stuff is because when you look at this rock face, the cork, it's very fine. So it looks like a slate rock anyway. It's like in runs. So I've gone for thin slate, one because I've got loads of it. And all I'm doing, guys, I'm just selecting a few areas. Just putting some PVA glue down. Just straight PVA glue. I would usually use, you know, just super glue. That one's too big. Just find some bits that are going to sit in there okay. Like that. I would usually use super glue, but I've run out of liquid super glue because I've been doing a lot of terrain lately. And And there's that much filler and stuff on this that you won't get through to the foam to upset it anyway. So all I do, guys, is I literally just pack it in like that. And then what I'll do is once I've gotten round, put in all the areas where I want like the fallen rocks and things, I literally just water down some glue, some PVA, and I just drop that on top with the brush. So I'll show you what I mean in a second. Okay, so I've put them bits of rocks in there like that. There's no real thought. I use a bit of the dust just to sprinkle and blend it in. Okay, and then what I'll do then, guys, is I'll show it on a brush. I've literally put some glue on a brush, dip it in the water, and then I literally just drop it over like that. It might move it a bit. You could just spray it all with PVA glue, but it'll take so long to dry, and I want to get this finished tonight. And that's the how to paint video as well. Well, it'll be tomorrow, but I've got to flock it and spray it and everything as well. So that's another day. But I mean, it's another video. So, but that's literally all I do, guys, with the rocks. And I'll do that all over areas where I want to have little bits of fallen rocks and stuff. So if you want to know how to add, you can do it with PVA glue. If you want to do it with super glue, that's completely fine. But just use liquid rather than gel, guys, because it just runs and covers it and seals it instantly. All right, so this is more or less it. When this is dry, I'll finish the video off, and that's how you create and build a good looking hill. All right, but yeah, I'll finish the video off and touch in a bit. Right, guys, so you saw how not so difficult it is. You've got to be a bit more planning. It's not a slapdash. You've got to, you've got to weigh things up, shape things, and it's a little bit more thought, which obviously then adds a bit of time, and you're layering up fillers, and you're just making it a lot stronger, a lot more robust. But you've only seen it built so far, and it looks good already. So imagine what's going to look like with some paint on. Do you know what I mean? So, like I said, guys, it's not a secret society of modelers. Do you know what I mean? Anybody can do this, and this is what this group of videos is about. Just getting even your novices to try and do things like this, because you'll be surprised how good you actually are without trying. Do you know what I mean? I was. I was shocked as I was building it. So that's what I'm trying to do. Trying to get you to push yourself that little bit further, and I hope that video does that, guys. So thanks for tuning in again, and we'll catch you again soon.